Today we're going to be reviewing set 70721 Kai Fighter containing 196 pieces and retailing for $20 back in 2014. Now if you want to purchase this set off of Bricklink today, new on average is going to cost you around $65, and if you want to purchase it used, that average is going to be around $21. Moving on to our minifigures, we get two minifigures in this set. Going from left to right, we have Techno Kai with one of the collectibles for this particular wave, that being the red Techno Blade. And then to the right of him, we also get General Cryptor, who comes with two silver swords, and then he also has this missile launcher. Now, one thing that's kind of interesting about the missile launcher itself is that you kind of see it in two different orientations. So here is the orientation that I have it in now, right there. And then if you go to page 5 here, it says right there, you can see that it has you build it in a different orientation, which I thought was kind of weird to me, but the orientation that we have it in now makes more sense to me than what is shown here. Going back to our minifigures, here we have Kai without his face mask and General Cryptor without his headpiece, getting a better look at the faces that they possess. Turning the minifigures around and starting with General Cryptor, you can see that he has no alternate face, but he does have some back head printing. He also has some back torso printing, and then moving on to Kai, he does not have an alternate face, but he does have some back torso printing as well. So here is the only build you get when purchasing this set. Taking a look at it from the scale perspective, I think it's pretty much perfect. There is probably like 1 to 3 studs worth of error in some areas, but I think that that's kind of negligible overall. Staying on the topic of accuracy, there is also the color scheme of things. So there is the red and black as well as the gold, which just kind of makes sense for Kai. That's just kind of his standard colors that he will always have in his builds. But there is also this green here, which really bugs me. There was no reason to have that in there. I think that having other colored bricks in builds doesn't usually bug me, especially if it's covered, but in this case it's not covered. And even if it was covered from the outside, it would be visible on the inside, as you can see right there. So that's just kind of something that kind of bugs me. And that green color is also shown here in the back, as you can see right there. Now there is some stickers on this set, which is pretty cool. There is some stickers right here. Now I don't know the entire meaning of it, so I don't know what T.S stands for, but I do know that this 70721 is the set number for this particular set. So that's pretty cool that they added a little Easter egg in that. There's also stickers with these vents here. So there's one on this side and one on this side, which is pretty cool as well. And then obviously the flame stickers on the left and right side, just adding to the personalization of Kai's vehicles. Now there is some other areas they could have added stickers in, which is up here. So they could have added one here and here just to make it more accurate to the show, but it's not too big of a deal. From there, we move into the cockpit area. So we have the cockpit area. So the cockpit area is very small overall. There's also the use of weird colors in here, like this tan bricks there, and there is yellow in there, which is kind of interesting to me because you don't really see yellow overall in the set. You don't really see it. It's always gold or red or black, no yellow. So it's interesting that there's just this one yellow brick in there, which is weird. Here's kind of a better look at it. So yeah, that's just overall weird to me, but the overall cockpit is very small as well. If we want to fit Kai in here, it's definitely a very snug fit. So you kind of have to seat him there and then push his body back here. And then his arms stick out over the top, which is really weird to me. I feel like if you're going to make a minifigure size vehicle, at least have his arms go into the cockpit area. It's just too small in that aspect, which is kind of a shame. And then, you know, there's also the aspect of not having a panel for him to look at, which is kind of something that really grinds my gears with certain sets. They create these cockpits and then they don't have any type of indicator that they are piloting the vehicle in any way. No gears, no panels that they're looking at, nothing like that is added here. So the cockpit leaves some space to be desired with this set. Finally, we can take a look at our play features. Now this set has 2 play features, and play feature number 1 is going to be flick fire missiles. However, you can't really flick these missiles, and that is just because of the location that they are in. You can't really get your finger in here to actually create the force to flick them. And even with moving these 2 panels up, you can't really still flick these missiles. And even if these weren't in the way, they are so low that you could, potentially catch your finger on this plate right here, trying to flick it. So you'd have to be pretty accurate with it. But here's what it looks like trying to use these flick fire missiles. Instead, I'm going to have to try to push them here. So here's one on the right side. And you can see it went kind of a good distance. It's a little bit of a bad angle to try to use them at. And here is the left one. And there goes that one. So that is how those work. Not the best use of them just because of their location. Obviously, they're just too low and, too close to this back area that you can't even flick them properly. So that's a shame in that aspect. And just to get a different view, here's a different perspective so you can get a better understanding of how far these can go. So here is the right one first. And then we can switch over and do the left one as well. So you can see that the distance is kind of varied and it's a little bit harder just to get these to go out smoothly just because of the position that they are in. Moving on to the next feature, we have more of a transformation feature. So taking the jet, we can go ahead and pick that up. And the way that this feature works essentially is you have this piece back here, or these sets of pieces, and if you push this in, the back transforms into a speed mode. What we have it in right now is more of a standard or attack mode, I would say, and then you can do this here and transform it into this speed mode, which is advertised on the back of the box and is also shown in the show as well. So this is pretty cool. I don't really like how it looks from this perspective at all. I'm not a big fan of it. I prefer it in this mode here. It just seems more natural to me, makes more sense. But one thing I will say is that the feature works great. I like the fact that they're not using any type of rubber bands in this, so those don't lose their elasticity over time. Instead, it's just a bunch of bricks, and that's the only thing that's powering this contraption right here. One thing that I do have an issue with, however, is the lack of covering for the actual contraption here. I just feel like it wouldn't have taken much to cover this up so that you don't have to look at that when it's in this mode to begin with. So, that's the only thing that it's failing me. That's really, bugging me about this, is that there is no covering here when you have it out like this, or even when you push it in like that. I know that the reason is probably because, you wouldn't have the ability to pull it back very easily, but they could have added something back here to make that portion of it easier so that you don't have to, put your whole thumb in there to try to grip as much as you can to pull it back. So I do understand that aspect, but it would have been nice for them to at least cover up to the Technic portion right here. So again, this is everything you get in set 70721 Kai Fighter, containing 196 pieces and retailing for $20 back in 2014. Now, was this set worth the $20 price point for that time period? The answer is yes. I do think you can justify what we have here at $20. There is some things that could use some improvement, however. I think that the cockpit is one of them. The cockpit should have definitely been at least a little bit bigger so that you could get Kai's hands lowered in there as well. And there should have been some sticker to, have some type of paneling in there just to show that he is, controlling something to some degree. Another thing is the flick fire missiles. They're just kind of in a weird spot. I feel like they could have had that design there, but had the actual flick fire missiles in another area just to make it easier, potentially, maybe somewhere on the bottom, who knows, but right there, they're a little bit hard to get to. Another thing is the actual mechanism not being covered properly in the back area. I just would have liked if they covered the Technic axle part of it. Mainly that. Everything else is fine there. Just the axle being covered would have been nice, because it just leaves a little bit of a hole there that's kind of not very aesthetically pleasing at all. And then the last thing being the green that's shown in the vehicle in some areas. That's just not necessary. They could have had it black and it would have been fine. And then, just one more minifigure would have been great for the $20 price point. I just enjoy the ability to have an army within the Ninjago sets, because usually they are fighting, these small armies of evil people throughout the show. Now that concludes my review of set 70721 Kai Fighter. If you enjoyed the video, consider liking the video. And if you are enjoying the content, consider subscribing. It is completely free and it helps me out in the long run. Now, as always, I will see you guys in my next video.